Good evening.
G'day, mate.
How's it going? 45 different devices in one instance.
45 plus, most likely more than 45 actually.
Did we get that bloke that was stuck in the doorway making all the echo noise out?
We figured out who it was. He muted himself. But yeah, I think the moment they unmute it becomes an issue.
What was that What was the background noise in the end?
There were a few background noises. I could tell one was probably XP because it sounded like a truck. Yeah, and the other guy, I think it was just static or a mobile issue, most likely. But the moment everybody went into arcade for the VR users, it was done. On the bright side, everybody could run away from the guy, so we all found our different spots.
Exactly. Yeah. PJ said it's someone scratching their nails on a whiteboard. I was actually saying to King of Cogs when it was isolated to the area where you go in, obviously because of a person and stuck, and I could hear a dog barking and everything. It was very interesting.
It was a carnival. It was a real carnival.
It was. What was the target, the number of users RFOX wanted for the stress test today? I'm not sure if Luke's here.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Luke's here yet. He's not here yet.
I think as many as possible. I think that's probably a fairly good number. Red Pill, I don't know if you've got any. Oh, he's not. Yeah, he's there. Yep.
Yeah, I think 50 was the goal. Yeah, I think 49 was our previous record, so I think 50 was the goal for this one.
Bigger more and more with. That's why we need to stress test it, because we need to make sure when you tournaments and events and group exercises, it's extremely important to make sure that that's all covered. Yeah, I swear I could hear a truck in the background. It was XP, right?
He didn't reply, but I'm gonna guess it's XP. It sounded like it was in an AMA and he was on the truck.
But how would he be on his mobile? Not on his influence. Did you see how? Oh, with the beer pong, did you see how close the game was? With how slow you were, it wasn't an easy win. Did someone recorded the final, didn't they, or the match?
They did. I can share it right after the AMA today.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
It got pretty intense. It was a pretty good competition, pretty good battle in the end. All right, so while we're waiting for Luke, I'm assuming he's still dealing with some stuff. Do we want to start with the questions that you've been given during the week? Yep,
sure. I'll read it out for everybody. Basically, these are questions from the community members over a span of a week. We'll start off with Rect first, and it goes like, I have been inside VR chat a fair bit recently, really to get an idea of what is already out there, and I've noticed that majority of users are immature children, which in my opinion makes the whole experience extremely unenjoyable. My question is, how does RFOX plan to regulate to ensure the above doesn't happen? Example, block users, mute users, monitor activity, etc.
Yeah, it's a good question. I've actually, I think any of us that have spent some time in VR chat would have had something similar to say for sure. I think it's also the type of experiences, but ultimately you will get a mixture of users in there with yeah, I mean, I've been in the rec room and stuff and had annoying grown adults in there when it's mainly a kids environment as well. So I think the ability to be able to filter and to mute and to block people is extremely important. And I think that when you've got the main areas that we have in the vault versus the districts, you'll also have different types of people attracted to different things as well. It's just like real life, isn't it? You're not going to like everybody, and that's why it's really important to have the ability to select the people that you're interacting with and to be able to mute people. That's very important. So, yeah, the ability to filter your surroundings is very important. Red Pill.
But yeah, just one point I want to add as well is that in VR chat, one thing that's really popular that you don't actually notice as a normal like public user coming in when you haven't used VR chat so much is that a lot of it is in private groups. So even those hardcore VR chat members and people that have been in there for a long time, they usually rarely hang out in public spaces. They usually have their own groups where they hang out, and those are usually people that they want to hang out with. So that's the theme that I've seen across the community that yes, there are those public spaces where all this stuff happens and you're not really interested in that. But once you kind of created your friend circle there, you just hang out with them. And I think something similar would probably happen in the Vault. Like we'll have those events where a lot of people will be and you will catch up with some new people potentially. And then there will be areas like your own apartments where you just hang out with your friends. So that's how I've seen that.
Thank you for that context. I think for people that have spent time in there, it's there's lots of different things that you can have. It's a good public areas will have a very different type of crowd than those district spaces as well. So, and apartments, of course, you're not going to be letting riffraff into your apartment, are you?
All right. The second question is there a data set showing the age of Oculus users or buyers and whether there is a big enough adult audience to make the Vault a viable business, if indeed that is its intended market? I know it will only take a small crowd of foul-mouthed individuals to put off some users.
Yeah, so 16 to 24 is a large section of users. You've got your 25s to 34s make up, about a quarter of the users, and then your 36s right the way through to about 50. You've got about 27% of users. Depends which reports you read, but there is definitely a good mix of users. I was actually surprised when we were looking through some of the data on the older age brackets as well. You actually get quite a lot of people at the upper spectrum as well. It's sort of that mid range that sort of has a bit of a drop off. But when you're talking about the number of users, I mean, what was it in 2020? It was like a $6.1 billion market, and they're saying by 2027 it'll be up over $90 billion a year market. So it's a massive growth trajectory that it's on for VR, and I think the type of experiences and the type of worlds and interactive experiences that are made available will definitely change that demographic, because we're talking about relatively small numbers now compared to what it will be. But ultimately, people growing up or kids in those younger age brackets, they're going to, as the adoption of headsets and VR/AR grows, you would expect that you're going to get more and more younger people that are basically born onto it. They're going to not know anything. They're not going to know a world without VR and AR in some capacity. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that changes. But yes, the younger groups will obviously stay on longer and have been involved longer. So it'll be interesting to see if the older demographic still holds level as time goes on.
Alrighty, this next question is from Jay Charles. This question is from Ben. Motivation comes and goes. So I asked, what is the driving force for you to get up every day and build what you are building? This can be extended to the rest of the team. I have seen you guys put the work in for years now.
Yeah, I think it is a good one for us to all answer. I think for me, it definitely started out as being wanting to do something significant. Being a person who was an expat and traveling around a lot and moving your family around and stuff like that, you sort of, in most roles, you sort of don't feel as though you're actually building something or shaping something. You sort of feel like you're just grinding. And for me, it started off as wanting to build something that would be, as I've said many times, you could look your kids in the eye and your kids would say, look, I'm proud of what you built and I'm using what you built and all the rest of it. But as time goes on and you get more and more people involved and you build a team like we've got, you sort of, if you feel a little bit off color or you're having a flat day, you sort of think to yourself, there's a lot of people who rely on you to get it done and to get things across the line. And I think that the really motivating part is that it's not just one person thinking that, or not just a couple of people thinking that. When you've got lots of people that feel the same way and don't want to let their teammates down, and we don't want to, we don't want to fall short when it comes to delivering something that's amazing, and we all believe how amazing it can be. That's what really motivates you, is that you know that you've got a lot of people around you that depend on you to get the job done. So that's motivation enough. You know that it's not just you. You let the whole team down if you don't perform. So I think it's a very good motivator to get up every day. What about Lala or Phil, Red Pill? I think Urban Gecko's here as well.
I think you spoke for so long, I've forgotten what the question is. Can you just repeat it, please, Lala?
Sure. What is the motivation?
Come on, keep up, like a...
What is the motivation for you to get up every day and build what you are building?
I don't want to go hungry. It's always the ultimate motivation. But I think it's sort of aligned with what Benny was saying. I saw something, and that's when I came into this community, I saw something ridiculous that was very aligned with some passions that I had, the whole digital metaverse, and a project I was busy with. And when I saw this, I thought, well, here's people that are already doing what I was thinking and what I was excited about, and I saw was the future. So getting involved is a no-brainer, because it's a similar idea of, I want to be involved in something that's going to have an impact on people. I want to be involved in something that, like Benny said, my children are going to end up using and something like that. And this is that opportunity for me. I'm very inspired by it and motivated by it.
I guess for me, it's a very odd one. I'm not sure odd, but I love games. I've always been in weird kind of metaverses, because World of Warcraft was what I was introduced to many years ago. So as I grew older, I always wanted to be part of something that is connecting people and doing what it does. And I think when I joined, or when I looked into RFOX for the very first time, I was like, this is exactly what I want. This is exactly what I feel I would be using every day. And being part of this whole community and also the team, it brings like a perspective of what is possible, and it just drives me to want to do better and to create things, experiences. And a lot of my friends are from a digital kind of landscape. Like, I have friends who I've never met in my entire life, but we're super close because we have a connecting factor. And I see Vault being something like that for someone. And yeah, that's what makes me push through every day.
Are you talking about Gecko? That the friend that's online that you can't see?
He's a dark horse reminder of my mistakes.
Yep. We're definitely not a friend. More like an enemy.
Pete, Red Pill?
For me, is just a challenge. I mean, I think when Benny talked to me, like, that's 2.5 years ago, Benny. Like, shit, time flies so fast, right? It's all about challenge. I mean, previously at my previous work, I was also in it for a challenge, but this one is a bigger challenge for me. So, a challenge to fix problems, find solutions for problems. That's what keeps me going. Lots of stuff, and Benny is a type of person that will definitely throw a lot of ideas out, and love working on the ideas. Love working on the stuff that I can't talk about right now. Lots of stuff I can't talk about right now. I wish I want to talk about it, but we're not at a time that I can talk about it yet. But you guys will see once I get to talk about it, and yeah, that's the problems that we're fixing right now. And I think that's all the stuff that we're doing will eventually culminate to all of that.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
Pretty similar. Mine. Also, just if you have a tech background or something in engineering or any of if you're interested in those new technologies, like, it's just that's the perfect place to work, because we're doing so many things that are cutting edge, doing like new kind of ideas with NFTs and with AI and all those things. So it's just really inspiring to be on that front. Like, we were like the first ones doing mobile game fully on chain, or one of the first ones doing that AI stuff in apartments and so on. So being like really there and working around that, and like in the process learning what's coming and figuring out how we can integrate it, how we can provide value to our users. I think that's really exciting. And also seeing how we're improving like our whole processes and how we're approaching things, and how our team is getting better and better. It's just really motivating. Like looking back, I don't know, like for like 3-4 years when we started, and what issues we had back then, and right now, like those things are not problems anymore. Like we always have things to solve those small things that we were struggling with back then, and we're looking now at those bigger challenges. And yeah, it's just great place to work. So yeah, that's it.
The kings are creating new problems when we solve the old ones, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
Every day. Story of my life.
It's my hobby.
But thank you. That's a good
problems,
question.
honestly, because like the most problems we had before was like those basic problems just to get up, like get started, and now the challenges are actually larger, but it's just more fun because you really see the impact right away. You have a platform that you can work with, you have products out there, you have actual users that you can get feedback from. So quality of those problems is definitely changing, and it's good. Also, the part about being actually able to execute on ideas, I think that's a huge one, because we've always had really good ideas since the start. We were pretty early with things, and always wanted to do some cool stuff, but we never really had the team or the knowledge or the connections to actually get it going. And that completely changed. Right now, we have a really good internal process. We have a really smooth workflow and so on, and team. So whenever we have like this idea, like it's really clear how we can get there, and that's even better, because that way you can be super creative and come up with things, and we'll work out how to do it.
We'll have to earmark Luke to answer that question when he's back. He's actually just he's notified us that he's not going to be joining us live, so we'll have to get his answer for next week.
Alrighty. So the next one's really not a question, more of a discussion from Voltox, and the community had asked to raise it. So basically, his question or discussion is what people would like to see before we ramp up marketing. And in his opinion, it needs a sexier login menu and loading screens, a better tutorial intro for first-time login, more gameplay type tutorials, for example, inside the space station and so on, more of the user portal working, performance for stable and fewer bug crashes, maybe a smart way to make it more obvious for people logging in to know where to walk and what's available inside the app itself. So he basically asked the community, and they wanted to talk about it a little bit today about what may happen in the near future for Vault.
So the good feedback points. Micah or Joe, do you want to get the ball rolling on any of those points? If there's anything that you want to, yep.
That right there is probably a 6 months roadmap all on its own, just a few items. Obviously, those points are valid. They're definitely valid. Experience is always something we're looking to add. At the same time, we've got to constantly focus on stability, which is a lot harder than people realize, because every time you add one thing, it has to play nicely with the other 750 things you've added in the past, and sometimes that goes fine, and sometimes it doesn't, and that's a tough balance. And there's a few of those items that were mentioned that are on the cards. They are currently busy being implemented. They're on our backlog, and they're being done in this quarter. Stuff like some UI improvements and things like that. But our primary focus at the moment is more on the user experience. So we just want to get these things in and get it functioning. Because it's easy to put lipstick on something that works. It's very hard to first get that thing that works sorted out and then implemented and used. We're also doing a little bit of data analysis to see what gets used, of what's implemented and what's not, so that we can focus our features in the right direction, because obviously you got resources and you got to allocate them. So all the user feedback that you guys give us, we have on a mother big list, and we are constantly looking at it. And when we look at features, we look at what we can stitch together, what we don't need, what is appropriate to our business models, and things like that. So whenever you guys give us feedback, it's definitely heard and it's definitely captured, whether we respond or not. I can assure you that.
Yeah, just regarding the user portal, it has been ready for some time now, and we're just really close to pushing it out. There were still a couple of issues inside the Vault because that needs to work together basically, because the new user portal will give you some more functionality. So yeah, I know we've said before that we were close, but yeah, we're just waiting for proper build that is really stable, and then we'll push it out right after that. The new portal will go live. This will have plenty of more functionalities there as well.
And in addition to what's been said, I've had the benefit of having Luke and Glenn here for a couple of weeks as well. And the thing is that we've been looking at and talking about exactly what Joe and Mike have just covered. It's really important that we sort of polish what we have and make what we have very stable, and then really focus on getting people to come in and, as stated, and be able to sort of build uninhibited and without too much hand holding. So it's not about always putting 50 new features or 50 new things in there. It's about saying, let's get the ones that we've got functioning smoothly and stable. And as Mike said, if you put in a change, every time you change something, it's a recipe for something to go wrong as well. So getting to a point where you don't actually have to touch the core for a period of time is obviously a significant milestone we need to reach, because once you get to that point where it is stable and you don't need to mess around with it and it does look good and it is more polished, then it's going to be the districts and the personal spaces that are the ones that are getting the sort of updates and added features and new experiences and stuff like that. But the actual core of the Vault should be largely untouched for a sustained period of time. So that's the kind of hope and the goal that we get to in the near future.
There you go. All right, moving on to KB76. This question is, what are our chances or odds to get on the Killer Whales show? What would be our ambition there? Would be a great success? How can we create excitement? So I can answer the first one. The chances and odds is really, they haven't really disclosed it. They really do want to share more about what's happening through submissions, and anyone who submits would have to go through the same process, but they haven't really disclosed how they're going to be selecting. Hopefully we'll get some news by the end of the week, because there's still like a week or so for people to submit any last entries. So yeah, we'll definitely keep people updated on that. And then for question number 2, approaching NQ2 with a rapid pace, what is confirmed for delivery within Q2 and what will be moved? Could we get an updated roadmap till end of year 23? Thank you.
Yeah, so Luke's unfortunately not here from a product perspective, but Joe, Redfield, you might be able to shed some light on the things that we are allowed to talk about.
Yeah, sure. So on the Vault, we're still targeting the deliveries that we promised. So apartment launch, citizens launch, staking, a version of staking for NFTs and for VFOX. So those things are still in plan. It will probably be tight until the end of the quarter, but we have the whole team focusing on that. So those things are still, in the backlog, and we don't expect major delays on that. And obviously, as we said before, like performance improvements, a lot of those things will be high priority as well. We still have plenty of bugs in that we need to iron out. But other than that, those are the main. That's the main focus for this part, basically.
From an over perspective as well, obviously those things lead to as Red Pill just mentioned, that sort of so we go through PI periods where we actually focus for a period of time on particular goals, and the whole team, as Joe said, is focused on delivering those goals. And as you probably can ascertain from what he's talking about to the end of Q2, it's very much based on the promises and on what we've committed to delivering. And then the rest of the year, we also want to see, obviously, more and more creators coming in, and we want people building and developing experiences and launching brands. So that's going to really sort of provide a real different feel and look once people have started to get multiple experiences. You saw what a difference it makes to put something like Fear in there when there's not a lot to do, and then you put an arcade in there. So each new experience or new launch that comes along it will dramatically change the look and the feel of the Vault. So it's going to be very interesting to get the creations in and the users in.
All right. Those are all the questions from last week and early day. I guess we can take the latest questions now. And we have one for you, which is, do you expect much difficulty integrating to Apple VR coming shortly?
So, no. But the thing is that people, so we've been approached with people asking the same types of questions and all the rest of it. Obviously, the Apple VR it's going to be a different type of headset. They're going to be using Unity at least as one of the providers or engines. So that's also a tick. I think that I think we'll have to sort of keep you posted on how some of that stuff will evolve. But the thing is that all the bright boxes are being ticked. It's good. It's going to bring some attention to the space. It's interesting to see how there's a lot of projects that probably it wouldn't impact or aren't VR, don't have any AR, are very much traditional types of platforms that are sort of still trying to plug onto that wave. But ultimately, this is just another tick of validation that VR, AI integrations, AR, all of the sort of things that we've been looking at for quite some time are getting further validation points. So I am sure and certain that there will be Apple-based experiences from our tools and from our APIs, SDKs, etc. 100%. I don't know if you want to add something, Red Pill or Pete or Micah, to that. It's very hard to say without.
Yeah, I'm not
Very
going
hard,
to
it's
step
very
on
hard
that
to
one.
say.
Yeah.
It's very hard to say before I get hands on the hardware, and it's Apple. So
I mean, I would expect them to support Unity because it's the game engine with the most developers, and they're not going to build everything themselves. Obviously, they'll have their store with VR apps and so on. So I think we're set up really well for this, and we already have an iOS version, so it will not be a problem to port some of that to the VR version that they have. We need to obviously learn how the specs are and everything, but yeah, I think it's going to work out really well for us.
Yeah, the hardware is speculated to run an M2 chip, which technically I run my iPads running the M chip as well. So it looks like Unity's already pretty aligned to run on that hardware. It's just going to matter about the OS and what they do with that. So yeah, it has to come out so we can start experimenting. But I know for a fact that publication companies or large companies like Unity and Unreal Engine and all that kind of stuff get their hands on those SDKs long before it reaches public, and they've already started working on implementing it. So I would be surprised if come launch time that doesn't follow suit very quick.
Yeah, and to add further context for those, if you do find good sources and reference materials for, or you've got a go-to place, please share them in the group, and we'd be happy to have a look at them as well. But trying to keep across everything and read everything Apple-based, there's a lot of conjecture over certain specifications, pricings. We've heard lots of little games and false signals and different things as well. So to Pete's point and to what Red Pill was saying, it's going to be largely a wait and see to have a look at the specs as well. Because ex-execs are sort of saying that they don't think it will be successful, or that it'll be a long time before certain things click in, and then you've got other Apple insiders saying, there's already hundreds of apps that'll be able to click in and go pretty much from the get-go. So we really don't know until it sort of hits the market and goes. But we know the price point's obviously a lot higher than the headsets that are on the market now. And they've estimated to sell 960,000 units by the end of the year. So it's obviously the Apple fanboys will ape in, and everybody will get one and try and give it a go. But it's going to be very, very interesting to see just in general. And I think that I don't blame platforms that are calling themselves metaverses that are just a game or something like that have got no real integration potential for the higher level things. It's still going to bring attention to the space in general. So that's a good thing, regardless of what the outcomes are.
And I think in general it's going to be a huge deal for us, seeing Apple being like the most valuable company in the world by far, embracing VR and this whole movement. So it doesn't really matter if we can immediately build something on that platform, depends what the specs are, but the whole exposure that we'll get from that will be really good.
Yeah, and to Red Pill's point just there, like when we first talked about VR and stuff, people had said, no one uses VR, and it's a very small niche. And we had the same thing happen when we were looking at blockchain and AI and all the rest of it. But the thing is that these things come full circle pretty quickly, and a lot of our conversations are about all roads leading towards VR. This is just further validation, and honestly, you can just see that shift is going to happen. It might take a period of time, but it'll look like it happened overnight. And I think you're going to get, lighter devices with longer battery life that are more immersive. We really are in the Stone Ages. We're still sort of drawing stick paintings on cave walls at this stage with the tech and the specs and everything. And I think that the one question that I keep getting throughout the week and throughout the weeks is that, when will the graphics of the Vault sort of step up to some of these console games? And you're forever sort of talking about the fact that we're early and the technology doesn't allow for that same type of things from these headsets yet, but it will progress. And the more that these players come into the market, the better the offerings are going to be. So we're basically showcasing as, a pretty, I think it's fair to say, Red Pill, we're pushing the envelope already. So it's just the beginning. It's going to get a lot better.
Alrighty, so I think there's another question from X. X is on Apple. Did he sell their soul? If not, can we start rolling out?
What was the last part of the question? They sold their soul. If not, can we start rolling out what?
Can we start rolling out stuff on iPhone?
So iOS is a tricky, difficult beast. And if you read there's actually some pretty conflicting information on it. But if you read Axie stuff, they've effectively brought out a modified or different version. But it does have NFTs, but it doesn't require you to buy the NFTs to play. So there's a few little bits and pieces that you can do there. But again, with some of the interest from people that would look to develop or roll out, there is definitely ways that you can do more. But it's, talking to the developers today as well, they were saying that, a significant percentage of their time goes towards making sure that you're building for the Apple version, that you're making sure that you're up to date with the compliance that they request, that when you're not breaching any rules, or it's not an easy thing to deal with. And the support, being very honest, and I think most of you would know, it doesn't matter how much of a fan you are, the support is absolutely shocking. It's horrible service they have, and it's very difficult to get anything done. So it's not easy, but there are options and solutions. I'm trying to hold back and be as nice as I possibly can, but it's a pig of a platform. It's a pig of a thing to deal with.
All right, we have a question from SV. Number 1 is, I don't understand the point of stress testing with humans at the moment, as there were only 45 while the project is trying to cater to 2000s. Were there some stress-inducing program of sort included in the stress test?
No, I mean the whole thing was just like testing how many people we get in and how the performance stays there. Like right now, this was all in one instance, so we're not actually distributing people in different instances. It's just everyone in one space, and we want to know how many people we can fit in there in the current environment, and still keep a relatively good FPS. And recording all of that data in the backend with a crash analytics program, and that will help us, learn and improve the quality. Obviously, we're just starting now with 45, but as I said, that's just in one instance. And instancing is basically unlimited later on. Like if you, for example, go to VRChat, you don't have single spaces with 3,000 people. You have single spaces with up to like 32 people, sometimes 50 people at a maximum. And then you have hundreds of instances of those. So that's how normally those projects are doing it. And we pretty much come to the limit of what we have at the moment of our setup. And but we will have soon an infrastructure upgrade as well, which will get us even to more people, up to 100 to 200 if the specs work out as they say. But that's what I can say about that.
Just for clarification, that's not 100 to 200 people in total. He's talking about the instances. So
correct.
That's an important thing to know, because the question that we get asked a lot is how come there's been some sort of VR concerts and they have seemingly tens of thousands of people, or the other side had tens of thousands of testers and users. So it's very different. And the other question that I saw the other week was, why don't you just make a billion bots and get the bots to test stuff? I think the thing is that humans are logging in from different devices and different portals, and they're using they're using the systems and everything. It's extremely important that we have that feedback and live interaction from people. It's extremely important.
Sure. All right. So number 2, I didn't realize how dizzy I would be using the app for an extended amount of time. Have other people stated the same, and has there been discussion within RFOX regarding this?
There was an article I saw today that said that 65% of all headset users have, this is not from the Vault, this is headset users in general, 65% of headset users have explained that they are or have experienced some form of motion sickness. It also has something to do with frame rates as well. The Quest Store has the Quest app store has a lot of prerequisites and frame rates and stuff, but there were still games like Echo VR where you would go in, and because you're continually catching a disc and pivoting and moving around and trying to play a game of space frisbee or whatever it was, a lot of people reported that they would feel quite nauseous at the end of that. So again, the frame rates and will definitely have an impact on how people feel and think. But like I said, 65% of people, so it's not like it's an isolated incident that just 1 or 2 people feel a bit dizzy or whatever. It's a lot more than that. And I don't know if anyone's got anything else to add, but they expect that will decrease majorly over the course of time with the technology improving as fast as it is.
As Benny said, it's the FPS, the frames per second, and some people also experience dizziness in high FPS environments. So for some people, it's not even related to that. It's just that VR experience. But at the moment, we still have, not an FPS rate that I would call ideal. So we're definitely working on that actively. That's one of the things that we want to improve with the stability and new upgrades. Like one thing also to notice that you have different FPS in different environments. So you might have a low FPS, let's say in Q5, and then you go into an apartment or the arcade and the FPS is potentially higher there. So there might be some environments, if you get dizzy, that are better to go to where you have high FPS, if that's the reason why you get dizzy. And yeah, if you want to check, you actually see the FPS in the menu. So if you open the user menu and you click on the settings button, you will see what the FPS are in the current environment.
No, I think personally for me, I was playing games before that, and my games were usually very movement centric, boxing and stuff like that. So I never really faced much of the dizziness, but I have heard of some people going through that and getting used to it as it goes. It's just more of what type of game you play and how you get used to the situation for me, I think.
Yeah, you can
That's a
also
good point.
look, there is some best practice for movement in VR as well. Like, for example, in VR, it is very bad practice to move your eyes around. You shouldn't try keep your head still and look at stuff in your periphery, because the lens is just gonna murder you. You're gonna get dizzy. You're gonna get migraines. Your eyes are gonna strain. It's not ideal. You should turn your head towards what you want to look at with minimal eye movements. Things like that also reduce those fatigues and that dizziness and things like that, because your body is very quick to pick up when something's unnatural, and looking through the distorted lenses does do that when you're looking periphery. There's also talks of an artificial nose. So we'll eventually, at some point when we have a bit of spare dev capacity, consider putting in an artificial nose button so that people can try that out, because apparently that helps. But the more you do it, the better your body adjusts to it. That is fact.
Alrighty, question number 3. Currently, it seems like there are a lot of hurdles to try out the Vault, SideQuest, Oculus Depth Mode, troubleshooting, RFOX account, etc. I would think that a lot of these will go away once official release is out, but I believe it's still worth discussing. Has there been efforts or discussions regarding ease of accessibility to Vault, pre-release and post-release? And is marketing even worth it considering the current accessibility? From what I see as a consumer, it seems that the only viable option is to quietly release, get accessibility up, get devs and modders to develop, and then start marketing.
Yeah, so I can give you an overarching answer. So you're right, and I mean it's no different to look at blockchain and stuff and how difficult it is to do stuff. You hear about people wanting to. It's gotten easier over the years, but I still have tremendous difficulty trying to onboard people to setting up wallets and safely storing their credentials and all the rest of it, and making sure they don't fall for stuff and click the wrong things. It's like there's a lot of hurdles to go through for that as well. And I think that with what we're building, it definitely will get easier, and it'll get easier quickly, especially with the plan that we've got in place. Regarding the marketing, as stated before, it's important to push and get people aware of what we have. The thing is that the criticism that we've had quite openly is that there are people that don't have anything that have more buzz and hype around them than you do, and you have something. But as you say, if it isn't 100% smooth or it's difficult to access, then that's something that we have to work quickly to get. And it's kind of a curse. I talk about this a lot, and it's just being blunt and honest, and that is that it's a lot easier for me to take a piece of paper and write something down and then go out and say, hey, we're going to build something that's photorealistic and you won't be able to tell where you are, and it's you're not going to know you're in VR, and it's going to be so realistic that you just have trouble distinguishing and all the rest of it, and people go, wow, that's going to be amazing. And then you've actually built something and you're building to the top end of what's capable at the moment, and people look at it and go, oh, well, that's not what these other people are going to be building. So sometimes having a product early, especially when you're dealing with those technological hurdles, it can be a little bit of a disadvantage. But from a marketing perspective, it is important that people know what we've got, that they know to come to us when the time is right. But a lot of the best marketing for us will be the people that build inside of the Vault, that then talk about it to their audiences, growing their audiences. That's the best form of marketing for us, much as it is with VR chat or any of the other platforms out there. So yeah, that's my 2 cents worth, is that it is definitely worth getting the top of mind sort of stuff done and getting the word out there that we exist and what we're doing. But you wouldn't want to be, and Luke's adamant about that, trying to bring on 50,000 users tomorrow, because we wouldn't be able to handle it. So it's got to be a balancing act.
Yep, I think personally, showing what we have is really important. We've had some amazing conversations because of it. Especially, for example, C11 have done a great job with tapping into other communities and getting like early people to come up and also bridging that connection. I think marketing is always required, not just for the perspective of what people say, but it's to create that conversation, to get perspective of other companies who want to see things in a metaverse setup, because everybody's different and every company wants something out of a metaverse that we may not have seen it from a certain perspective. So yeah, I definitely agree that, videos, anything to do with getting people into the Vault, having stress tests, getting people to know each other is really, really important. And if you see a few community members here who are constantly at beer pong or in the Vault, they've become more friends than ever, because it's an experience that you just can't describe. Example like Rect and Voltox, Gecko, and everybody else who's been in there. It's a different experience that you want people to go in and see. And through marketing, that is how you kind of get people's attention and curiosity. So that's why it still has to be done regardless.
Yeah, and I've never met those people before in my life, and I've touched them in ways that I've never been able to before because of VR.
Oh my God.
I still have nightmares about all the donuts on the chessboard. But that's a great answer. Artesh has written, Benny's now been blacklisted by Apple, laugh out loud. Well, I'd probably get the same service access as everybody else then. I don't think there'd be much of a difference. I'm just digging a further hole, aren't I? I'll stop.
Yeah, just one more point also to that, what Lala said. I think I obviously like the accessibility. It is really important, and we're working on that. It's directly linked to the performance, and we also try a couple of other things that we can do to get to those, to the proper Quest store. So we're working on that right now. But also the whole thing is quite a learning experience as well, and like having marketing and actually getting people in there, and making those connections early is going to help us, reinvent what we need to do, and like basically to adjust to what the needs are of our users. We're going to learn more about the product and how we need to, make it better. And it's all about who is the fastest to, learn and implement feedback and implement features that are requested and so on. So I think it's not going to be that we will have, okay, now that's the finished product, now we start marketing. I think it's more like a spectrum, and the earlier we start with that, that continued improvement, the better we will be after a time. So I think, yeah, it's a good approach that we're taking right now.
Yeah, it's a good answer. The question that I got asked too, one of them was, are we going to be doing more regular beer pong competitions and tournaments? I missed the opportunity to join the last one. Is it possible to do multiple tournaments during different time zones to cater for people around the world?
I'll answer. We are planning one for, and if you guys notice on our events tab, we will now have a beer pong night every Thursday, same time as our AMA. And it's basically to get people to just get used to beer pong, have conversation, hang out, maybe learn chess because Ziggy needs someone to play chess with him. So yeah, it's really more of a social gathering every Thursday moving forward. And June will have a beer pong contest similar to this month, but we will be doing it in different time zones. It will be voted on like the last time because we did open voting for those who are based in other countries. So make sure to check the announcement pages and channels because we'll be putting all the info there.
And then the second question that I got here was in relation to will we see Quest at any stage appearing in the vault in some form? I don't know if you want to answer that, Repco. I know how to answer it, but it's a matter of do we want to go there or not?
Yeah, I mean, it's always our goal to connect all those things with each other, and there are plans in place to do it also with Quest. But how exactly it will take form, I think that's still not. We're not talking about this yet, right? I'm not sure how much.
Yeah, I think that the easiest way to answer it is if it's in its current format, you would have to do it through like a what do you want to say? Like through a screen of some sort on a wall. So it'd be very much. To put it into context, there's a couple of games that have sort of come to us with, mobile style games, and they've said that they're interested in building scenes, a scene that has assets and potentially avatars that showcase the game that they have. So it's more like a place to go and hang out, a VR hangout, and have asked about the possibility of being able to integrate that on a wall or in one of the consoles in the arcade or something like that. But yeah, it's always going to be like a hybrid, right? You can't just magically click your fingers and turn it into VR.
But yeah, we still have plenty of room in the KOGs land. Some portals, so stay tuned. We'll definitely come up with some more stuff there.
Yeah. Oh, and sorry, one that I missed from last week was, this would have been better if Phil was here as well, but the question was, I missed it last week. Will we see the opportunity for creators, seeing as though they're being onboarded or looked at for the Vault, to participate or create games that can be included in the KOGs landscape? So I don't know whether they mean KOGs Slam World, like mini games, or they mean can we build, can people create games for KOGs? I guess we can sort of answer on his behalf. I mean, the thing is that you could, or Pete, are you still, no, he's gone. The thing is, yeah, go ahead.
We did actually work on a KOGs SDK some while back, and there were plans around that, and we're still looking into that. It's definitely one thing that is a very interesting proposition. So I wouldn't say it's something that we're doing like immediately, but it's definitely something we're looking at, especially since, for example, we have a lot of those tools in the KOGs ecosystem, like KOGs Mint Lab. And you can imagine if you use KOGs Mint Lab and you have an NFT collection that wants their own game, we can basically introduce them with KOGs Mint Lab to a KOGs collection, and then they could build the game around that KOGs collection, so they can get more exposure for the NFTs, more utility, and some game around it. So it would be a no-brainer for us to release some way for them to easily do that. So it's definitely on the plan as well. Right now, it was more focused on the SDK for general vault, for experiences, and so on. But it should be part of the whole SDK build out and tool build out as well. So it's definitely something we want to look into as well.
Yeah, and the second part to the question was, would you consider doing leaderboards for the games? So that's something that I think we've already talked about. Have we talked about that yet?
No, I don't think we have.
Internally, yes. Publicly, no.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll just park that one. We'll put that down to Phil not being here, and Luke not being here. So we'll park that one and come back and answer it next week. But the reason that they're talking about that is they're talking about there's a lot of preamble and text about creators building stuff that can integrate into KOGs landscape, and then also they're talking about for tournaments. So where the context comes from is they're saying that if they built something that would integrate, a game that would integrate KOGs into it, is there some sort of standardized leaderboard system that we would provide so that people can create their own tournaments and launch games with leaderboard tournaments? So we'll park that one. We know what the answers are, but we'll park that for next week and let Phil and Luke answer them. Yeah, so thank you for getting in for those who did to test. And in relation to Pong, it's tomorrow night, same time, right?
Yep, tomorrow night, same time. If you guys are on Discord, you can just click the link on the events tab to get the exact timing based on where you guys are.
I'll be there and I'll open a can of whoop ass.
Rematch!
And what's happening, Lala? Is it like, are we doing something similar to last time? Are you going to winners progress to final, or is it all decided on
this is just for fun. This is us training ourselves to beat Gecko more often.
Gecko beats himself every night.
Oh,
Yeah.
Lord.
And every morning. That's why I'm so good at it.
Oh my Lord! All right, on that, and we worry about broadcasting stuff, and I think that's the other elephant that I said that I would mention at the end of the call tonight as well, is that we have been constantly requested to. I know it's from a technology standpoint. People keep saying, you should do what others have done, like live EPL events or UFC or whatever. The thing is, the technology that we have, we can do this very simply already. The issue is that if you're doing that, you're likely to get a cease and desist and close down very, very quickly. The only reason that that's probably not happening at this stage is there's not enough traffic eyeballs and fanfare on a lot of these things. So it might appear to be a great marketing ploy, but it's actually not. The showcase of, if you're talking about it from the showcase of technology standpoint and say what is possible, it's very easy to showcase what is possible and what you could broadcast. Now, the next question that we got asked was, what about doing that from a private space? And how come people like VR Chat show up-to-date movies for audiences and all the rest of it? So it's a very complicated answer, and I've talked to lawyers for ages about this, but ultimately speaking, what people do in their spaces is on them, and you can have rules and conditions and a kill switch, and you can say, take that down or stop doing that. But ultimately, the way it works at the moment is someone would request, they'd say that's an IP infringement, or those people are making money from a broadcast that they are illegally streaming, or they're illegally broadcasting that. So they'd put up a sort of a complaint or a flag, and then it would be up to the platform to ensure that that's taken down or dealt with within a certain time frame. But you certainly can't be going out and advertising or selling tickets to a UFC event unless you have the appropriate licensing. And so I just wanted to make that clear, because a lot of people keep asking, why can't we just do what everybody else is doing? Not everybody else is doing it, and they're doing it in a specific way. But if you're flaunting that you're doing that, then the advice that we have been given is that you are not long bound for this world or to exist as a company. So we just have to be mindful of doing what is legal, and for the purpose of, as people have said, if you can't onboard people smoothly and all the rest of it, for the purpose of gaining another 50, 100, 200 users, as most of these platforms would only get from that, it is not worth it. You're better off to showcase the technology and what it can do in a positive way. So I hope that answers those questions. So if there's no further questions, very much for the team for coming and also answering questions as well. It's always great to get your input. And for those who spent time with us tonight, thank you, because we know you have a choice and appreciate that. And look forward to seeing you all on Gecko tomorrow night in the beer pong.
Have a great night, guys. Thanks for joining. You guys.
Cheers, everybody.
See you.